Thank you so much for joining me. This is not a normal episode. I normally am out fishing and it's a beautiful day outside, but I just got a nice package and I wanted to open it for you. I don't normally do unboxing videos, but I'm gonna open my new crab traps. I'm trying to get into blue crab fishing as well as regular fishing in the same marsh. And the idea is just to be efficient. I'm gonna take the crab traps out with me on the kayak, drop them in the water, go do my fishing, come back and check on the crab traps, and hopefully when I come home, I've got redfish and flounder and some blue crabs, and that'll make a nice meal. So, hang tight, and let's see what's in the box. I bought two crab traps. They're 24 by 24 by 8 inches. Very lightweight so that I can carry them. I'm gonna have to weight them down, so I have some rebar for that. And today's unboxing video is really about putting these together and getting them ready so that I can go out and drop them when I take my kayak out. And on the way in, hopefully bring in fish and pick up the traps and have crab as well for a great dinner. And we'll have to do a catch, cook, and clean coming up with that. But to get these ready, you actually, when I renewed my Florida fishing license, I actually have to register. It's zero cost here in Florida, but you have to register and you get issued a number, and you have to tag your pots with your name, address. It's a good idea to put your telephone number on it, and then your registration number. So what I just did was, these pots are from Brunken Manufacturing. I think they cost me about 34 or 35 bucks each. Brunken Manufacturing. I'm happy with the pots. It looks like, as long as they fish well. But the tags that came with them are very flimsy, fairly cheap. So today being garbage day, I took the laundry bottle, because we just ran out of laundry detergent, and I cut it up and I made some tags, and I could put my registration number, my name and address, and phone number on the back. And I'm just gonna zip tie these to the pots. Now, to be legal as well, you need your pots to retrieve them. You need a buoy, and those buoys have to have an R on it, and the R stands for recreational, so that commercial crab pot fishermen and recreational fishermen's pots, I guess, don't mix, and they're easily identifiable by the buoy itself. So I did purchase a couple of buoys, and I actually put R's on them. And I'm not very creative or artistic at all. But what I ended up doing to get that R on there is I printed out an R on my printer, and the R has to be at least 2 inches here in Florida. You can go on Google and search 72 points is 1 inch, so you can triple that. That's what I did, and make your font size that point size, and then print this out. And then what I did was I put this on a piece of cardboard, and I took a ballpoint pen and traced the outline of the black ink here onto here. When I lifted that up, there was an impression. And so then I just took that same ballpoint pen and filled in that impression, and then just took you should use an X-Acto knife. I didn't have one, so I used this little knife that I had, which is why it's all jaggedy and not exactly smooth, but it did the trick. I took this stencil that I built and I put it on top of this buoy and traced it out with a pencil, and then I just took a Sharpie and filled in the R. And so that's what I did to mark my buoys. So now I have my tags and my buoys, and I have also some, many people are using leaded line. I found this line, it was actually just a little bit cheaper, but it is a weighted line, but it's not weighted with lead, so it's going to sink and stay out of the way of boats. So I've got that. I also purchased 2 of these harnesses, which have 4 hooks that go in the corners of these traps and come up and give you a ring you can attach the rope to. So I have 2 of those. I actually had in the past this old anchor buoy of mine, And I thought it was a good idea. I found on Amazon the exact same buoy for $3.99. So now I have two of these, even though one's older. So I'm going to combine buoys. I'm going to put this buoy and this buoy together on the same line, just to give it a little bit more of an identification capability as I'm rowing by, so that I can recognize my pots, and especially if they shift, and a little bit more flotation. Got some outdoor zip ties that I'm going to be using to put the tags on to tie off the lines a little bit. And I went to Lowe's and I bought 4 pieces of rebar that are 2 feet by 2 feet. So I'm not going to be able to put them exactly in the corners. I'm going to see how best to do that, but I'm going to use these to weight down the pots. I actually bought 8 of them, 4 for each pot. So it's going to weight down the pot on the bottom, have it sink, and then it won't be susceptible to moving. Now, where I fish, the marsh really is about 2 feet to 3 feet deep in most places. Where I noticed the commercial fishermen putting their crab pots are in a little bit deeper holes, but not that much deeper. They're in 4, 5, 6 foot deep locations, and we even have some 12 and 13 foot deep locations. So I'm going to do a calculation here and probably do about 12 feet of line. Even though I have 100 feet, I'm going to do probably 2 12-foot lines, and that'll be plenty to fish in 6 foot of water. And that's where I'm probably going to be dropping my traps most of the time. It allows me to drop them probably in up to about 10 feet of water if I have about 12 feet of line, something like that. You need a little bit of slack, and especially because I'm only going to leave them out there a few hours. I'm not leaving them out there for days. So let's get going. I'll put all of this together, starting with zip tying the tags that I just created out of my laundry bottles to my traps. These traps are legal in Florida because, and I'll show you after I get this zip tied together. Traps in Florida, there's requirements, and it seems like it differs. When I was doing the research on this, it differs in every state. But in Florida, we need 3 escape holes. They have to be 2 3/8 inches at a minimum each. And that 3, most of the traps I've seen only come with 2, but I found these and they had 3, so. Oh. And that tag's not going anywhere, and it can be lifted up so they can see my name, address, and the registration number. I'll put this tag down. The difference, the other difference with these traps, and I don't know if it's better or worse. I did a lot of research, but the jury's out, just like it's out on should you use fish or chicken for bait. But these traps actually have a kind of a funnel here for the crabs to get in, but it doesn't have a trap door in here. It's got the bait basket that comes with it that you can put bait in on the bottom side, and it's got the twine here that you hook this hook to. So it's a very important, the twine is so that it's kind of called a rot cord. When it's sitting in the seawater, this twine will rot away eventually. If you lose your basket, and I don't know how long it takes, but let's say it takes a month, you've got crab coming in here and they can't really escape, and the food will probably be gone by that time. You want this rot cord to rot away, and it'll pop open this top, and it'll give the crabs an escape route. But this rot cord is a requirement on Florida crab traps as well. So it rots away, and then this hook will release because it's on a bungee, so that tension will pop up, and then crabs can just easily crawl out of this opening. So when you close it, you want to close it, and you really want to close it just with one of the rot cords. It looks like they put 2 strands on there. You just want one of them, and that way only one of them has to rot through to let them go. Okay, so our crab traps, my crab traps there, are now tagged. I've got my registration number 1 on here, and I've got my registration number 2 on there, and hopefully that Sharpie will actually be permanent. So I'm gonna get this garbage out of the way over here. And now the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually attach the rebar to the bottom of the trap. So now, the thing I don't like about this rebar is that it rusts. And that's gonna be a little bit of a mess, but I'm gonna try to figure out that mess. That's why at the Home Depot store, I wrapped them in this plastic after I purchased them so that it wouldn't rust all over my truck. So if you've got a solution for that, or maybe I purchased the wrong rebar, put it in the comments below and let me know. So we're going to turn these over to the bottom, which is where you can actually insert bait. And this is where the rebar goes, and I just have to kind of together so I can put them like that. And they're evenly spaced out. And that bottom will hit. So I think I like that, having them like that better. So I'm going to just grab some ties, drop a rebar in there, and we're going to just zip tie these. This is going to be probably fairly heavy. It's not too bad at all, but it is heavier, and that will definitely drop straight down. So that's the way to do it. So I'm going to do the second pot, and then the pot preparation itself is done. So okay, now I'm going to just trim the tags off of this. Now before you guys put these metal rebars on your pot, do a little research. There's this phenomenon called hot pots that they say prevents these crab pots from fishing well. Take a look at that, because a lot of people who believe in that have diagnosed it down to having rebar or metal, raw metal. Other people say that this raw metal, since it falls down to the bottom, sits and grounds the pot. So it has to do with dissimilar metals in salt water. Kind of, it's the composition of a battery, like a car battery. Two dissimilar metals with this salty acid in between. And so if you make a battery, as you're dropping your pot, it charges your pot up, and that static charge or whatever keeps the blue crabs away. Now, in my research, what I found is I believe in the grounding, I guess. When these things hit the ground, if there's any kind of charge, it should dissipate. That said, we'll see. If I don't catch any blue crabs, it's easy to break these zip ties and take these rebars off. So just wanted to use this for weight for now. Okay, that's the bad thing about rebar. It gets dirt all over your hands there. So I've got gloves to handle these in the kayak, but we'll see. Okay, next step that will finish off the pots is to attach the harness. So let's turn this pot over. Looks good. And then we bought these harnesses which allow the pot to enter the water square and stay square as it drops. I thought about making these harnesses on my own, which is not hard to do, but just figured it's cheaper for me right now to get ones with the clips. So we're going to attach this to the four corners near the top of our pot. Good. And so now that pot will drop just like that, straight down, square, and that's what you want. So let's go to pot number 2, and then our pots are done. Okay, so we've got 2 crab pots, the harnesses are on, the tags are on. The weight is in there on both of them. The rod cords are there. Each of them have 3 escape hatches. Those escape hatches are supposed to be Florida legal, which is 2 3/8 of an inch. These are. So the escape rings are good. Now all we have to do is create our crab lines. And some people use clips on their crab line and then they just clip them to this. I'm gonna tie it. I'm not gonna go shrimping or anything else, and so these crab lines are gonna, for the most part, stay permanently to these pots. So let's get our rope, cut out our, what I decided to do was use 25 foot of line. I had 100 foot of line, so I've got 50 foot for later and 25s. If those 25s tend to be too long or whatever, I can always go back to the new cord, or I can shorten those cords up. And if they're not long enough, at least I've got a 50 footer. I'll be able to put it on one trap and go get some more line to put on the other. So now I've got 2 25s, and what I've done is I kind of burnt the ends of this with some matches that I have lying around, and I'm going to zip tie them because you can see it's kind of unraveling once I get everything together. So this is one of the 25 foot cords, and just going to kind of figure out how much. Now 25 feet, I'm going to spend probably 4 or 5 feet of this getting it through these buoys. So that's not really 25 foot of depth. I figured it'd be around 20 foot of depth that I could fish, and then you want some slack in your line, so probably about 15 foot of depth that I could fish, and that's the deepest part in the marsh. So that's kind of why I went with 25, plus it split my line in half in a nice way. So I'm just going to play around with this knot, and what I want to do is I want to get a loop on this side, but I don't want it to slide through, and so I think I'm going to, got, you know, a bend up there, and then I bend the loose end up. That might work. And then if I can slide all of this, it'll give me a loop and a loose end to tie a knot on up there. All the way through. Let's take our buoy and slide this in. Hopefully you can see I'm really just an amateur at this. Never been crabbing, never even eaten a blue crab before. What I want is I want a little loop like that, sticking out, just so I can reach out with my hand and grab it, you know. So wrap just three loops around the hoop, if you will. Sorry for the layman's terms. And pull those up. And then now I'm just going to cinch that knot in a little bit. Good. Can barely fit in the top of that hole there. You see that? So it's not going to slide through. So let me pull it out there. You can kind of see what that knot is. It's 3 wraps around and then up and through, and it's cinched down. So what I'm going to do now is I don't mind this extra slack, but I do mind it's unraveling. So I'm just going to put a zip tie right here. I can put a zip tie all the way around to kind of help make that noose and keep those things from fraying and keep them pointed down. And the tension on that, there we go. There you go. So now it's locked in. These frays are pointed down, I can slide them in. And there you go. So if I cut the zip tie, loosen. So there we go. Take that sharp end off too. There we go. Okay. Have to remember this for the next one. So what I've got is I've got up at the top, and I can kind of pull it into the hole a little bit just from doing that. But you can see it is snug up at the top of that buoy. And the knot is mostly in there, but I have a little hoop I can grab it with. And I've got a hoop down here. Now, why did I leave this hoop down here at the last minute? It's because what I want to do is I want to take the end and slide this small buoy. I don't know if this is a smart idea or not, but you want an extra buoy there. And then I can take this line and put it through that hoop, the end of the line. So I'll show it to you. And now that bottom buoy is locked in, and I'm going to loop it around one more time. Here's my buoy. It's got my recreational R on it. I came through, and remember I left this loop down here. So I came through and I put it through this buoy, and then I locked it in by just wrapping this bottom line around the hoop. And so I think I'm going to just leave it like that. And however that floats, it floats. But this buoy's not going to go anywhere because it's locked in, and on the bottom of this will be the crab trap. So now all I have to do is tie this to my crab trap, and I'll be done with one of them. Let's, before I do that, I'm going to tie the second one on now that I know how to do it. The final step in all of this is I'm going to tie this to my crab pot, and I'm going to zip tie the line together. I'm going to put a knot in it, but I'm also it's going to look something like that, but I'll put a knot as well. And then I'm going to zip tie with 2 zip ties, I think, at the bottom of the pot. That way it's not slipping. Not going to slip out whatsoever. And these are outdoor exterior cable ties, and so having 2, maybe even 3 of them on there, something like that, should be enough. And remember, the ends are already burnt, and so they're not going to fray out. So let's put that on our crab pot. So I'm going to pull this crab pot over. And remember, what we're really doing is we're putting it on the harness, so we can always take the harness off and free up the crab pot. So here's our harness. It's already attached. It doesn't have to be attached to this, but I'm going to stick that through, do a uni knot, which this way. Okay, my fishing line's out here. So then I've got this doubled up, 2 loops really, and this goes on the inside a couple of times. And then I think only twice is enough. Okay, so I just cinched down the uni knot and I left myself a tag end. Unlike fishing line, I'm not going to trim my tag end. That's strong enough right there to hold that harness in place. That said, I've seen people do this before where they just secure it more with zip ties. And remember, this crab trap is sitting possibly 20 feet down. It's got rebar on the bottom, so it's heavy. You don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose it, so I'm going to put 3 zip ties each at different places on this tag. And I just tied a uni knot, and guys, sorry, I'm an amateur at this. Definitely a recreational amateur, never did it before. So if there's a better way to do that, you let me know. The reason I use a uni knot is because that's what I use on my fishing gear. Fishing line when I'm out tying lures and fluorocarbon to my braid. So it's just an easy knot that I know. And I'm just imitating what I've seen others do with zip ties. So I've got a whole pack of them there. So there you go. I'm going to trim these off, and I'll show you what we're left with. Here's what we're left with. I've got a uni knot, 2 loops only. This is really thick cord on my ring for my harness. I've got the tag end secured by 3 zip ties. That goes all the way up to my bottom buoy, which is just attached with a few hoops there. On the hoop that comes up through the center, and there's a knot and a zip tie up here. So I honestly think this is fairly secure. It's not going anywhere. Now I've got to do the second crab pot. I'll leave it out so I can measure it. So one more time, we've already tied our... So there's our crab pot. That's how I put together my crab pots. I'm going to go measure this line and see about getting out there and seeing what we can catch. Thanks for staying tuned. As always, like and subscribe. Really appreciate your subscribership. Punch that button and you'll hit the notification bell, and you'll be able to adjust to make sure you get notified when I post new videos. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you out in the marsh.